The countdown is on. If you can't handle these 5 things about Asheville, North Carolina, it may just not be the right place for you.
Nah, I'm good.
Let's get to it. Number 5, we are a city. We have city amenities and we have city problems. We have unhoused people. We have people who stand on street corners asking for money and people who are suffering from severe addiction and who you will sometimes see out and about. So, personally, I don't think this is a unique problem just to Asheville, but it seems to be affecting the entire USA. And it wasn't like this when I left. So I moved away for a while in 2012. And when I left, Asheville was a little bit different. It wasn't as developed. It was kind of getting there, but it wasn't as developed as it is now. And then when I came back, I noticed, oh my gosh, why are these people all standing on the street corners? What has happened? Well, when I left, America didn't have an opiate crisis like it does or did. I'm not exactly sure the state of it right now, but it seems like it's still kind of going on. And I don't think Asheville was ever really proofed from that. Even though we are a tourist city, we still experience people who are suffering. So we are a city. We feel like a big town, but we're still a city. So do I feel safe? Yes, I feel safe. I live about 15 minutes from downtown Asheville. I don't really ever see any kind of transient people walking through, but there are different areas of Asheville where you do see that. And we offer lots of help to people who are experiencing addiction and who are experiencing not having a home at the time. And because of that, sometimes people want to be drawn here. And it can be seasonal as well. It's cold here right now, so they're not here right now. So what do I not do? I don't walk around downtown Asheville at 2 o'clock in the morning out of my wits. I keep my composure and I know where I am and I know what's going on. Around the downtown area, I just kind of, have my heads up. Around other places, I'm pretty relaxed. If I'm on a trail with some friends or if I'm just walking around a neighborhood or anything like that, I feel pretty dang good. And my friends do too. It's not a topic that we speak about often. The most that we ever see it is in some sort of news or on Reddit or something like that. Otherwise, everyday life, we're just not really greatly impacted. So we are going to post a link down below for crime reports on Buncombe County. It separates it into areas and type of crimes and things like that if that's something of a concern for you. But I want to be sure to tell you the good and the bad of Asheville because it's my civic duty as a resident and also a realtor. And if you're looking to move here, you are going to want to know this stuff. So hit subscribe and you'll find out more. Okay, number 4, we are a tourist town. If you didn't know that already, that means you haven't done your research. We're marketed everywhere. So sometimes things can cost a little bit more in Asheville. Sometimes you have to wait a while. We were at dinner last night with some friends of ours and they were like, it seems like, whenever we have to wait these days, it's about 20 minutes that we have to wait somewhere. So it's not always like that. And if you're kind of a local and a resident here, you know how to time it so you don't have to. And there's busy seasons and slow seasons. But during the busy time, you may have to wait for a little bit or make a reservation. And sometimes there's traffic and it's dependent on where you come from. If you're coming from Kansas or Ohio somewhere and you get behind a few cars, you're like, I can't believe it. But if you're coming from South Florida or New York or parts of California, you're like, this is a breeze. So it's really a matter of perspective and attitude. But yeah, sometimes it gets people-y here. There's some people during certain times of the year because it's a tourist destination. Why is it a tourist destination? Because we have really cool things. We have award-winning restaurants. We have attractions that you've probably heard of, like the Biltmore and the Grove Park Inn. We have the Nature Center. We have 1 million breweries. Don't quote me. I know who you are. We have tourists that come here all year long. So for different reasons in different seasons. And that's why people choose to spend their money here and choose to come here is because of all the wonderful things to do and experience. There's nature all around us. We are in a little bit of a valley with mountains surrounding us with trails. There's skiing close by. There's 100 runnable rivers right in the area that are old, and this area has culture and history, and you can just kind of feel it. It's a whole vibe here. And it's wonderful to get out in nature in general. So if you don't enjoy that, if you don't enjoy the people-y aspect, the tourist town aspect, being surrounded with so much nature. If you're more an urban dweller, Asheville's not gonna be for you. Avoid it. So, I mean, there are lots of things to do too, like arts and crafts festivals and music festivals. If you like to stay home, that's not gonna be your deal. And a lot of people buy homes here. Speaking of homes, I can help. But a lot of people buy homes here that are on their own piece of land. So if you are really into planned subdivisions, we have them. They're just not as popular as in other parts of the US, like Florida, where they're really used to having a HOA and a community center and sidewalks and rules and restrictions, things like that. But in Asheville, it's a little bit more laid back and relaxed, and we don't have as much of that. Number 3, avoid at all costs if you can't handle the wildlife. There's nature everywhere here. It's just like I was saying before. I mean, we have bears, big brown bears that are kind of cute, but don't touch them. They'll come and get into your trash, so you have to lock it up or be kind of strategic about trash day, when you bring it out and bring it back and all the stuff. And when you go hiking, it's a good idea to have like a little bell with you or make some noise, have a friend so that you don't surprise the bears on the trail, especially with your dog. You can't always just let your dog off a leash, so in case they try to like protect you against a bear. We have snakes and we have spiders. And we have ticks as well. Last year was a pretty dang good year for ticks, but sometimes I do a little spray. I do a spray on me just to make sure. I definitely don't want Lyme disease, but I do believe, now don't quote me on this, but I do believe the ticks that we have here are not as highly likely to carry Lyme disease as other places. So if you don't prefer the nature as much and you prefer more like the protection of concrete and all the things that are not so dangerous, it's not like it's super dangerous, then it might not be for you because there's nature all around us. But one thing we don't have a lot of are bugs and like critters that get you. So I don't, this last year I did not have to use off or any kind of bug spray that much. You don't see a ton. You see some, but you don't see a ton of screened in porches where you kind of have to live in a little box outside. You can be outside comfortably all year round here. I mean, really, even in January, you can be outside and feeling great in the sunshine. And, speaking about wildlife too, we have fishing. We have fly fishing because we have tons of rivers. Some people hunt around here, but in my particular neighborhood, we see turkeys running around all the time. There are hedgehogs that are on the side of the road. When I take my kids to school in the morning, I'll see a little hedgehog and I feel like he's waving at me, but he's probably not. They're adorable. And tons of squirrels, of course. Tons of squirrels. Number 2, Asheville might not be for you, or Western North Carolina, if you can't handle a little mix in the area. So there are lots of areas where you will find different kinds of housing and different kinds of people all in one area. So you have to remember that Asheville City started out as kind of a bougie place for wealthy people to vacation during the tuberculosis era. So they would go to these big porches, and they would call them breathing porches, to breathe in the clean mountain air. And we sprouted people like George Washington Vanderbilt, which you may have heard of, who started the Biltmore Estate, and Thomas Wolfe, and Nina Simone, and Zelda Fitzgerald spent some time here towards the end, and the end is pretty. And there's other people that live here that you may know as well, like Andy McDowell, and Gladys Knight, and Steve Martin lives here part-time, and you can see him play music around town sometimes. He's one of my favorite people. But once you get out of kind of the city proper, you will see a mixture of all types of homes. Now, some people find this off-putting. They don't love it. I kind of find it a little bit charming because you have to remember the roots of the area. This is the Appalachian Mountains. This is the Blue Ridge Mountains. There's a lot of history and culture here of porch sitting and jamming out and music and overalls and mountains and moonshine. I mean, this is what made Asheville in Western North Carolina part of the cultural scene, and this is a heritage that people take seriously in some areas. But when it comes to housing, people who visit here are sometimes a little surprised. You can drive by a manufactured home with half of its personal property stored in the yard, and then next door you can find a $600,000 home 30 seconds driving time later. We have a neighbor down the road that has this situation, and people drive down the road and they're like, I can't believe it. But I mean, here's the deal. The entire area is now becoming gentrified due to the cost of living and the goals and intentions of the city of Asheville to keep it thriving. So you will continue to see this happen throughout the next 20 years. So what you drive by now will probably not look the same in the future, and neither will the home prices. Now, for some people, this is favorable. And for the other ones being pushed out after having generations and generations of family in the area, this is heartbreaking. So it comes at a cost for sure. To guide you to an area that would be right for you, feel free to reach out to us with any of the links down below. Okay, are you ready? Number 1, if you don't have a job, don't come to Asheville. Dang it, I wanna come to Asheville. Okay, here's the deal. If you don't have a way to make your own money, just forget about it. Or find a way. I mean, we're smart people. We can figure it out. So if you're a remote worker, you're an entrepreneur, you have a job transfer, or you're in the health industry, you're probably good. If you're a really successful artist that's very established nationwide or globally and you want to live in Asheville, awesome. We do have a really supportive artist community that is here. But if you are just starting on your art journey, you might have a hard time making enough money initially because of the cost of living. So the cost of living in Asheville versus the demand of wanting to live in Asheville can be really tricky. So how do you know what you can afford? Can you afford it? And I made a video just about that subject. So if you're interested, take a look right here. Until then, ciao for now.